Hey everyone, it's Evangeline here at etrailer. Today we have the RockyMounts Gigawatt electric bike rack. This is gonna have a lot of weight capacity and a lot of features that we're gonna check out here at etrailer. Some highlights to look out for is gonna be the ease of loading this rack, the versatility with the different bikes, and the pretty decent tilt it has. We also have things like a ramp that's included with the rack. So if you're as excited about this rack as I am, well, I'm gonna go take this inside the etrailer studios so that we can take a closer look. Well, technically the journey starts when you get your box, you assemble your bike rack for the first time. But for me, whenever I use bike racks, the first thing I always think of is how am I gonna get the bike onto the rack? And that's where we're gonna start today. I really like the loading process of our Gigawatt here. It's all very well thought out. So imagine you have a heavier bike. Compared to other racks where you pretty much need the ramp to get it all loaded up, your end is already tapered here at the end of the tray. So you just lift up on that front wheel, keep going, and for a lot of electric bikes, it's gonna be that rear tire that's gonna be the heaviest because that's where the motor is. And then having that front wheel supported helps out. Now you may have to dodge around handlebars, but that's still gonna be a lot easier compared to having dodge around a center mast. You're just gonna keep going until that front wheel settles into that front hoop. To finish loading, you now have multiple points of contact, but some of them are optional. We're gonna start with our front wheel hook. This one secures to the front of your tire, just like any other good bike rack. You have a strong fit there, and then usually you'd go over to that rear wheel strap. But if you have a bike with fenders, you have an optional secondary strap. So if you're trying to dodge around a fender, you just secure the bike at the bottom of the fender, and then you use this other rubber strap, and that goes around the rim, and then over that mount, and then into the tab. Now secure your front hoop strap, and secure your rear wheel strap. And just like that, your bike is all loaded and ready to go. If you're familiar with the easy design of the monorail or high noon FC from RockyMounts, you'll see that this is very similar but improved. You have that extra strap there and the tapered end there to make it better and easier, especially for those heavier bikes. And that leads us to our second main feature that I'm a big fan of, and that's gonna be the versatility of the bikes that this rack can carry. Not only can you carry bikes of different shapes and sizes and weights, pretty much any bike rack is designed to do that. This, though, makes it easier to carry two bikes. There's 15 inches of space between each of these bikes, and that's impressive. This means I'm less likely to struggle with handlebars hitting seats, pedals hitting other pedals, or running into center masts. That 80-pound weight capacity for those extra heavy bikes, a 55-inch wheelbase, which is impressive compared to other racks for those extra large or extra long bikes, and you also have a 4.5-inch tire width for your fat tires. And while I wasn't sure about that front wheel hoop design at first, obviously a little kid's bike, the front wheel will fall right through. This isn't really the bike rack for that. This can fit wheel sizes from 20 inches to your 29ers. And the perk of this open wheel hoop design is that it causes the front of the bike to just settle down a little bit further, and that gives us even better clearance with the other bike. And the third big thing about this rack is the tilting capability. Now, I give it high points for how deep the tilt is, but I do deduct some points because of how I have to tilt it. It is really easy to do. You don't have to pull two different pins or turn a bunch of knobs. You just pull one easy to hold latch. However, once you do pull it, that rack can come down pretty quickly and pretty heavy. So if this was loaded with two 80-pound bikes, I'd have to dodge real quick. And then lifting the rack up, I highly recommend holding the rack and not your bike as you lift up. That's a lot of weight. I have to get up there. Whew. So if you're on your own and you have to tilt your heavy bikes away, prepare yourself. But if you have a second person with you, that will make this process a lot easier. That tilt angle though, pretty impressive. If you measure from the top of your shank to the top of our tilted bike rack, that sits at 7.5 inches. And if you measure from the center of the hitch pin hole on your hitch to the closest point on that bike rack, that's gonna be 11 inches away. So if you need to open up your hatch or lower your tailgate or open up your trunk, that measurement will help you see if you have the clearance for that. Obviously here, our pedals, our handlebars are way out of the way. I'm not worried at all about any of that making contact. Plus, this means you can do things like put away groceries, switch out your shoes, grab your helmets, do whatever you need to do without having to take your bikes off. While those are 3 really important things about the bike rack, we cannot continue on without talking about the ramp. And while I've worked with a lot of ramps on a lot of bike racks, I really like this one. It's very lightweight, but also very sturdy. This is gonna be about 4 feet long in terms of ramp use. And I like the angle of it, where we can still ramp our thin road bikes up there, but also plenty of stability for our fat tire bikes as well. Well, this has hooks on the end that just go over those tabs on your rear of the tray, and that's how you ramp your bike up. It's pretty stable, especially with the rubberized ends, giving you stable footing on the ground. The one downside to this is you do not store this ramp on your rack. You keep it inside your vehicle. But with how easy it is to carry around with how lightweight it is, I'm not complaining too much about it. Plus, if ever I do forget to bring the ramp, and I am a pretty forgetful person, again, going back to that ease of loading your bikes up with that tapered tray kind of makes up for it. This is a great example of all of those big features working together. We have the ramp on there, making this super easy to do. I have our heavy electric bike, and I'm not worried about it at all. With that whole clearance between the bikes, I'm able to bring the bike up and not get in contact with that other bike, which is really impressive. And then finally, that whole ease of loading, this just settles into place. I only need to put that front hook and the straps in, and then I'm ready to go. So this was really nice to see how all the different features aren't just there for themselves, but to make your whole journey a bit better. Continuing on with features, this includes a humongous chain lock, something that RockyMounts started with their guide rail bike rack. The way this works is that this chain, instead of a cable, wraps into itself and then around your bike's frames. The end of the chain then fits over the welded half pin on your bike rack frame, and then you secure it with one of your bike rack's locks. So your bike rack is going to have 2 locks. One of them is for the frame to be used with your chain. The other lock goes onto your shank, which fits into your hitch receiver, and this secures your bike rack to your vehicle. Both locks are key to like, so you really only need one key to access the whole system, and you get 2. While we're down here, let's talk about that hitch. This fits into your 2-inch hitch receiver. Unlike the other RockyMounts racks where they usually give an 1.25 inch option, since this has so much weight capacity, you have to have a 2-inch hitch. This also has a bolt that secures the anti-rattle pin. So when you install your bike rack into that hitch, you're gonna have a 3-axis tightening down. You also get a stamp wrench that tightens down that bolt, but I recommend grabbing your own 3/4 inch socket ratcheting wrench. It's gonna be a lot easier that way. So double checking your hitch receiver and making sure you have the right size as well as the right amount of tongue weight capacity for this system is very important. And if you don't yet have a 2-inch hitch on your vehicle, you can find one custom fit for your vehicle right here at etrailer.com. But everything is gonna work together to be a lot of weight behind your vehicle. The bike rack weight is 64 pounds. Add in up to 160 pounds of bikes, that's gonna be pretty hefty. So if you do everything correctly, making sure all your straps are secured, making sure it's properly secured into your hitch, that will make for a stable ride and experience on the road. So let me show you what I mean. The drive was pretty uneventful in the best way. There is a slight bit of movement, but that's mainly of the rack and not so much the bikes on the rack. A little bit of side-to-side action there. Do remember that when you do have a rack behind your vehicle, as you do need to make those turns and back up into obstacles, it is going to add some length to the back of your vehicle, so just be mindful of that. Now we're back inside. Let's take some measurements, and with the bikes off, this is what your rack is going to look like. I highly recommend, if you do have these straps, make sure they're secured in their tabs so that way they're not flopping around if you want to drive around. Do the same thing for your rear wheel straps, and also fold your front hooks over. Now, taking some measurements, if you measure from the center of the hitch pin hole on your hitch and you go out to the end of the bike rack, that's going to be 39 inches added to the back of your hitch. The closest point from that hitch pin hole to the closest point on the rack is going to be 10 inches away. The bike tray is going to be about 10 inches above your shank, and that's going to be how high you have to lift those up to 80-pound bikes, and that's when you may want to use that included ramp if you find that your hitch or your ground clearance are just too high for comfort. And only if you are using this bike rack on a motorhome or a fifth wheel, you're going to have an extra bolt that will add extra stability. This is going to go into the middle of your base. You're going to have a bolt, a flat washer, and then another flat washer and a nut. Now these can be tightened down with your included stamp wrench, or you can grab your own 7/8 inch socket ratcheting wrench, and that will do the job too. If we pull that handle again, but this time we lift up on the rack, this will snap into place right there in the compact or the portable position. Let's take some more measurements in this position. Measuring again from the center of the hitch pin hole, this time the end of the rack is going to be 20 inches away. Big difference compared to when it was in the down position. You'll want it in this position when you're driving around town, you don't have your bikes on there. Another reason you may want it in this position is not only will it take up less space when you park, but it's also a good security feature. Not everyone is going to see you're going to have a bike rack on if you don't have bikes on, and this will help prevent people from merging into you with it in the lowered position. Now, coming up close to the vehicle, if you measure from the hitch pin hole to the closest point, that's now going to be 8 inches away. This will help you figure out if you have enough space, if you have a large bumper, if you have a spare tire. It will also help you figure out if you need to get a RockyMounts extension for this too. With it folded up like this, you also have to consider things like, will your windows be blocked? Will your taillights be blocked? How about your license plate or your backup camera? Obviously, this is going to perform differently on different vehicles. Fortunately, we do have a bunch of test fit videos here on our website where you try this rack on different cars of different shapes and sizes. You can also see with it in this position, as I shake the rack, super solid, super sturdy, especially if I had that RV motorhome bolt in. I would not really be able to fold the rack up, but I know that would have extra security. I've always been a big fan of the RockyMounts bike rack because throughout the years, they've always offered bike racks with premium features at an accessible price. And when I heard that they were going to have an electric bike rack plus one that was ramp compatible, I was super hyped for it. Now, if you are going to compare this with some other racks though, the main ones that come to mind are going to be the Yakima On-Ramp LX as well as the Hollywood Racks Destination E. I have a lot of content here at eTrailer comparing those two racks and describing why I like them for heavy electric bikes. They have their pros, but a big gist with how they compare with the Gigawatt is that the Gigawatt outperforms them in ease of loading, versatility, or the different types of bikes that you can load onto it, and it sort of outperforms it when it comes to tilt away. Comparing the tilt on the Gigawatt with the Destination E, the Destination E is going to give you way more clearance and is technically easier to tilt, but it does have a more involved process. So check out that video if you're curious about how that works. But for something that's super straightforward, super intuitive, you really don't have to worry about what knobs or straps or functions that you're dealing with. You just get your heavy bike on there, strap it down and go. That's where the RockyMounts Gigawatt really shines. I enjoy it, and I would recommend it to pretty much anyone else that's looking for a heavy-duty electric bike rack that has no frills and gets the job done. This right here was a look at the RockyMounts Gigawatt electric bike rack. You just saw it here at etrailer.com. And if you have any questions or want to see more about this rack, let me know. My name's Evangeline, and I hope you enjoyed the journey.